we're back to the League of Extraordinary Crafters, and this is the Deep Shadow section of this adventure, where we basically fill in all the harsh shadow lights from the lights, the three main light sources that are in this image. So I generally begin with the areas that are most obvious, that are just going to be completely solid black, and just get those out of the way. So behind the weapons here, in between the characters, that sort of thing. And I use a variety of different markers to do this. So I'll use a brush marker around the edges to keep the edge detail happening. As you can see, there's like a halo that gets done. And then with the large area of flat black, I'll just use a wider nibbed marker to fill that in. And so I usually go and buy those sort of things in bulk, because I use them a significant amount. These brush markers are quite nice because they're very similar to the brush pens. They just aren't as good with detail, but that's fine for shadow because shadow tends to have a softer edge. And so that's why I like to use that brush marker for shadowing effects. So you don't get a super geez, I'm at failure for words. Good Lord, my brain is not functioning at the moment. So it gives you a soft edge as opposed to a sharp edge that you would get with other pens, and that's good for the shadow work. So in the background, obviously, we've got this tunnel going down there. Now, it takes a lot of time to think and consider where things are going to be. I'm having a lot of trouble with this hammer thing, and I've made a mistake here, which I deem a mistake. And as I said in jeez, what's wrong with my tongue today? As I've said in previous videos, there's not really mistakes in that you should not do these. It's just how I feel about the image. And structurally, I will change this shadow later. You'll see that when I get there. So again, we're working with three separate light sources here, so you have to do a little bit of mental gymnastics to kind of get the shadows to feel right. They don't have to be 100% perfect, but it has to feel like that's where the shadow should be. Whether the shape is 100% correct or not doesn't really matter. It's more about that's where a shadow would be if you had these light sources. And of course, you know, if you've seen any of my other illustrations, you know that I love this very deep shadow that occurs in almost all my drawings, and it's the benchmark of my style, really. So I spend a lot of time on this shadowing. This, even though this video is going to be about 15 minutes long, the actual process took 2.5 hours. So it gives you an idea of how long it takes for these images to be, put together. So the pencil illustration, that probably took about an hour maybe, to get the pencil structure correct, and then the inking stage took about another 1.5 hours, if I remember correctly. So this is by far the lengthiest stage, at clocking in at about 2.5 hours. And then I'd hazard a guess we're probably going to spend about the same amount of time, if not longer, on the texture stage. So that's why your foundation drawing and your inking stage are important, because you don't want to then start doing these other things and discover mistakes. You want the mistakes to be rectified before you even get to this, because otherwise this is where you're going to have a lot of trouble, and you're going to have to really try and draw your way out. Sometimes an image might get abandoned, and you don't really want to do that. It's rare that that actually happens, but it can happen from time to time, where it just becomes a bit of a mess. And you go, right, I've learned what I need to learn from this, and there's no point in completing the image. I'll move on to the next one, because that's really part of what you should be thinking as an artist, is moving on to the next thing, iterating and learning. Always learning, always iterating. And I was watching a channel the other day where the guy was talking about you shouldn't set yourself a project, you should set yourself a product. So whenever you're creating art, think about how you are going to incorporate this into a product, or you're going to be able to sell this art so that you can continue paying for your materials and, paying for your time, really. So you have to consider how are you going to be monetizing this art, because that's an important factor of it. If you want to do this for it's a part of your living or all of your income or things like that, it's the thing they generally don't teach, that I've found in a lot of art schools and things like that. The ones that courses that I've done, it's all about how to draw and all this sort of thing, but very little of it is about the business side of art, because the business side of art is an entirely different subject altogether, and it's the thing that often gets overlooked, because that's the thing that helps you continue to make art. That's the thing that basically puts the food in your mouth and pays your rent, if you're doing it for all of your living, or if it puts the extra money in your pocket in order to buy more pens, buy more paper, pads of paper, and other bits and pieces, more markers, etc., etc., etc. So really, you need to consider that sort of thing if you're going to do anything like this. Of course, if they're just going to do this for fun, you at least acknowledge the amount of time that it takes to put these images together. And of course, if you're not feeling it, don't turn it into a chore. Keep going. Move on to the next project, and that will help keep your sanity, because there was nothing worse than slogging through something. You just want to complete it for the sake of completing it, and the joy has been taken out of it, especially if you're not doing it for any kind of monetary reward. Once the joy is gone, there's why are you doing it? So we've built up most of the characters now, and I'm just working on the background. This is going to be a very large area of black in the top left corner here, and a lot of shadow. One could say that the spell on Scotty's hand would be lighting up the wall on the left here. I was trying to use my 30mm marker there, and you can see that it was very scratchy and wasn't filling in a nice flat black. And I'm pretty sure that is because the way they packaged the pen was packaged upside down, so the nib wasn't being nourished by the ink from above. The ink was in the reservoir below, and I'm pretty sure that's why the pen did not do what it was supposed to do. So I am now currently storing that the other way around in order to sort of try and run the ink back into the nib. But if that doesn't work over the next week or so, it's back to the shop to get another one, because they're not cheap. That thing was about 20 bucks, I think. But nice, a big 30mm nib, you can get a large area of black very quickly, which, as you can see, I need that. So we're now detailing the shadows on the sword, and you might ask, why am I not using a ruler or anything like that? I'm getting sort of wobbly lines. The organic feel of what it is pretty much why I didn't use a ruler. I want to, and you'll see it in the stairs that I do later, I want to maintain that sort of organic feel to the drawing. When you use rulers and things like that, to get a very straight edge, it actually looks different to everything else you've been doing. So it's important, if that's the feel and the look that you want, then that's what you must do. You tend to see that a lot when people have very defined perspective lines, and then they start to use rulers and things to draw the edges of buildings and all that kind of stuff. You get these very, very straight, very sharp lines, which may give a different feel to the image than the organic nature of a hand done line. Now, originally I did the sword with a ruler, but I wanted the edges to seem battered, and that's why I did 2 lines there. So you've got the outer line, and then you've got the inner line of the shadow, and both were done by hand and not with a ruler. So you give that sort of dull blade feel to the sword. And the same with the spear, the spearhead, and the arrows and things like that as well. All of that's done with, even though the original bit was done with a ruler, it was hand shadowed to give it an organic feel. So here, even though there was a lot of detail in this hand, I'm covering up a lot of it with the deep shadow, and we'll bring some of that back with the white gel marker later. But again, you're looking at the light source. Where is the light coming from? How is that going to interact with the object? And this is why you don't want to do a lot of texture first, and this is why you do the outline first and then work on the shadow and then the texture, because you don't really know where you're going to judge where things should be, and you could spend a lot of time doing texture and it all gets covered up. And so that's basically a waste of time. And as I've said, a lot of the reason I like using the deep shadow is because it actually limits the amount of work I actually have to do. Because if you think about all these bricks and everything, that's where I just corrected the hammer shadow. If you think about all the bricks and everything, if I had to do the texture of all those bricks, when 10 of those bricks are covered up by deep shadow, that's a lot of work I don't have to do, and it's the single stroke of a pen. So in Lee's face, Lee Eddings from DM Insomnia is the commissioner of this drawing, seeing he was the first subscriber to this channel. I'm working on trying to get his look like he has the shadow from his glasses, because he's not wearing any glasses. And speaking of glasses, we're just filling in the shadow around Scotty's glasses there. But that's really how I'm going to try and work that back in. Part of the issue is that his face is a little bit wider, and his face in this is a little bit thinner. So slight alterations like that can change the appearance of a character. And he's also asked me if I can incorporate one of his tattoos as well, which I'm going to do in the final stage when I'm doing the texturing. The actual placement of his tattoos wouldn't work with the way his arms are shown now in terms of be recognizable, so I'm going to use some artistic license and place it on the side of his bicep that's in the front there. So here I'm filling in the deep shadow on the actual hand of the demonic goblin-y things that are attacking, and here I'm now using the ruler with my 0.3 nib to just get the stairs in the stairwell there. Now you'll notice that the stairs that are sort of a bit uneven. That's because we're going to go over that with the shadow. And as I'm doing these stairs, you can see I put some squiggly lines because those are where the shadows should be. I've made mistakes like this before where I didn't mark where the shadow was going to be, and then you start filling it in and realize they're out of sequence and then it becomes a huge problem to try to correct it. So as you're going, check everything, make sure, because you don't want to have got this far in an image and then making errors or mistakes that throw everything out of balance. So the stairs are quite quickly coming into shape. I'm just making sure I'm getting all the shadows and everything right, playing with the light coming from above the stairs a bit there, the pillars on the side. And you see I haven't used a lot of lines here. So these are just very simple representations of things that can actually, the mind tricks you into thinking you're seeing what's there, and that's really what I'm going for here with the shadows. We're just getting the light hitting the edge of the stairs. So again, with that organic feel, the width of the shadow changes because I'm freehanding it. I'm not using a ruler. And so you get a sort of a different feel, and I mirror that in now using the white gel pen to just do the little bit of edges of the stairs, just to sell the fact that it's stairs. And I'm correcting, I'm guilty. I'm correcting the line on the sword, which you would have seen in the previous episode. I couldn't think of any way to cover that up other than using the white gel marker. Now I'm just adding in a few little details within the shadows just to tie everything together and give a sense of things happening. And you can see the stairs in the front there moving off, that really sort of sells the air, the space that lies within the shadow. So thank you very much for watching. The next video we'll do the texture. You can subscribe, and if you're interested in commissions or buying products with this art on it, have a look in the description below. Thank you for watching.